Hey guys, Matthew here, and I think I cracked the code on why is it that common sense is not common. Because when we refer to common sense, this is actually an abstraction of something which people of the past were speaking about. Right now there's this debate that our attention spans have become close to a goldfish, something like 4 seconds of attention span, and the goldfish is at 5 seconds. So in other words, the goldfish is winning in terms of attention span. Coming back to the question of conventional wisdom, common sense, I think the author back then was referring to people then knowing what it is that they are using. Now, this is actually compared to how we are as civilians in this modern age in a first world country like Singapore, is that most of us are growing and thrive in a situation where everything is automated. We have electricity, in which we do not need to know how to generate power in the power plant. We have water, in which we have water treatment plants to treat this water for us. All we have to do is pay utility bills, which allows us access to plug in our devices and turn on the power to it and turn on the faucet in our households. So in terms of understanding, in terms of the ability of applying these important features in our lives and understanding it, this is widely missing. Now, on the topic of wisdom, I would believe that somebody wise would be more of a craftsman who understands the tools which he makes use of and have decidedly found what are the things that are useful and what is things that they should be avoiding. That is on the part of wisdom. So, why is it that common sense is not common now? And what were the people talking about and referring to when they speak about common men having common sense? I think they were referring to a class of persons in which they have a general understanding of what it is that they are doing. Think, for example, a new plumber, a new carpenter. These are people who naturally gain skills through apprenticeship, and in this way they have exposure to what they're doing. Compared to the civilization in which we live in now, we are just afforded things, and the way we get things done is to use cash and credit to purchase these activities and services. So it's a very different era back then. Now, common sense. Common sense then, from the apprentice point of view, would be the sense of use which he procures over and over, and naturally his body and his perceptions become tuned to what matters and what does not matter. In other words, let's lay down 3 layers, 3 levels of perception now in terms of sense. The first one is no sense, in which we have no clue what it is that even lays the ground. We have no conception. Let's say if we are a carpenter, we have no conception that a carpeted floor has carpet on it. We just enter a room. We have no clue what it is that we're looking at. The second level, the next level up, is where we know the elements that come into play. However, it still in a way does not fit into what it is that is happening around us. We observe things as beauty, but we do not understand it. The third level, which arrives at this thing known as common sense, is where we understand that there's a certain harmony between these elements which just makes things work. Like how water treatment plants go through cycles of filtration and reduction to clean dirty water into drinkable water. That is the level of common sense which I think that common sense was being referred to. Now, what about wisdom then? Wisdom would be something in which I would assume far greater than common sense, and it will be something closer to a collection of common sense and decidedly how to arrange labor, land and capital in order to achieve this outcome, which is viable to every party involved. You see, now in the modern age, or rather more correctly the postmodern age, the modern age was the 1900s. In the postmodern age, the majority of the leaders are more like stakeholders, and the place of observation in which stakeholders take is profitability. They are not particularly looking at corporate social responsibility. They are mostly in it for the money. And so in terms of parties has become synonymous, stakeholders have become synonymous to profits. In the past, let's say if you're in a village setting, the importance of stakeholders is their ability to contribute to the group for the betterment of the group. And every role, every craftsman, a plumber and a carpenter, the village chief, all play their specific roles and have their specific outcomes which they're looking out for. As of now, with advancements in economics, we are allowed the ability to work from home. In a sense, this is good because essentially we could use cash and credit to transact to get services which we need. On the other hand, it also distances us from what it means to actually be part of a group and to be a proper stakeholder outside of the need of only transacting in cash and credit. The element of goodwill and usefulness is largely lost. Wisdom then is tying all of these things back together. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Yes, what fell was the values. The values went missing. All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty together again. Why? Simple. Because what got us here won't get us further. And especially when most of relationships, most of the way we organize ourselves in terms of communities and peoples being largely abstracted and abstracted in the direction of the use of finances to put together. Many of the fat which actually insulates our body, much of the fat which keeps our communities safe and sound has been cut off. And thus all the king's horses can't find a way back to put Humpty Dumpty together again, simply because the major values which lead to this wisdom is also lost. So when people say that common sense is not common, think about Humpty Dumpty and how the king's men and horses could not put him back together. Because essentially, when we were first organizing ourselves many decades ago, it was a different situation and money was not the only thing that mattered. Now the question then is, okay, sure, I understand now that common sense is not common. Then what about this thing called conventional wisdom? What is conventional wisdom? There are many words in the old English dictionary that just does not make sense anymore. Why is it that we need to speak properly in terms of having good grammar when we articulate? Why not just follow Nike? Just do it. Although it's grammatically incorrect. What was the purpose and the use of using good grammar back then? Simple. Because it played many roles. It is like the fat which insulates the community to get a certain result. Now with a lot of things having been taken off so that food products could stay on the shelves for a longer period of time, so that there are more streamlining and optimizing of products, so that we do not need to travel so much and have advanced healthcare, so that we could avoid contagious and infectious diseases such as should I mention it? Such as all the various flu-like symptoms and flu-like viruses that we can have. The pervasive sickness, yeah, I got it. in a way, a lot of the old traditions and the old steps in which we have taken to reach the conclusion of the wisdom that we gain has mostly fallen off. So now I'm about to explain to you how it is that you can actually gain conventional wisdom. First of all, do know that all forms of wisdom has a beginning, and the way conventions were thought of in the past were as cycles. However, if you follow a train of thought of a religion, religion teaches you that there are no cycles. Instead, they are absolutes. So, if you perceive something as absolute, it means that it will be evergreen and true all of the time. This is good in terms of maintaining psychological stability. However, if you actually want to do things in the world and to achieve a result, you need to understand that the world is more of a cyclic nature. It's like the 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. On the other hand, religious doctrine is written in terms of absolutes because their goal is to maintain. Can you imagine having a house that is opened up? Okay, it is open, people can go in and out. Within a span of time, let's say give it a day, from dawn to dusk, many people would come in the house and they would also leave. So your foot traffic maybe will be 100 people perhaps. On the other hand, if you want to keep these people within your society and have them to pay for things and run it and to tend to your garden, would it make sense to have a closed door for your house? So people may enter but they can never leave. Or people are born and stay in the house but can never leave because the walls are just too high. Such is the pretext of many of these tribalistic religions. Now, tribalistic nature and tendency of things is more a factor of the ruler of the time rather than the actual religion, because again, whoever is in control will dictate what is to be done and how it is to be done. Even today, 2020, there are still many small villages and small-time tribal leaders who just blatantly extort from their own village people, even to the position of taking away their government funds which were allotted to the people. Simple. There's a very easy way to achieve this, because for example in third world countries, most of government aid actually just goes to the village chiefs. They do not go to individual houses like a first world country does. There's no mailing address, in other words. So a mean-spirited or an extortionist tribal chief, it has been reported many times, by the way. You could look this up. Many extortionist tribal chiefs would just take a haircut out of this government funding because for some reason he deserves funding which is for his people. So it is not the religion that's the fault, it's the people who are in power in the religion. Okay, that's a super sidetrack for you. What about then conventional wisdom? Okay, now let's say if you are strongly an advocate for religion and the way you see the world is entirely absolute, it's either black or it is white, then it will be very difficult for a person functioning in that sort of thinking, in the thinking of black and white, to be able to cycle through things. What do I mean by this? Let's say for example you only have an experience of summer. You go to the winter country and you have no pretext of winter and cold and jackets and coverings. It will easily appear to you that, let's say we put aside all information in terms of brochures, people, relatives, friends telling you that it's actually very cold, you should cover yourself up. Let's say you have none of this. You going to a country in winter would seem like that country is not a very good place because it's very cold and it makes you very uncomfortable because you, at the point in time, having an absolute mind, can only perceive that weather and environment means warm and comfortable in that sense. That's the tragedy with absolutist Because when they try to learn things, they are often short-circuited by having conflicting thoughts. Things which to another person seems to be a blend, like a different blend of coffee, a different latte, mocha, an espresso, would seem to be either very good coffee or very terrible coffee. So can you see the pattern here? An absolute mind is somebody who is like an armchair politician. He speaks all day about topics which he does not understand at all, because topics change according to the seasons and the cyclical turns. Yes? Now, if that is the case, and we are using things such as conventional wisdom as words, then when a person mentions conventional wisdom or articulates it, we could only take his word to the level of definition which he can give us. Oftentimes, it will be a default. It will be more of us asking, why are you saying such things and what does it mean? To further clarify what they mean with examples. Or it would mean that we would only accept the answer if it makes sense to us, individually listening to them who is presenting. So can you see such a disparity there in terms of having different definitions in terms of words? So I would strongly recommend that as you are going through material in the future, material being videos, audiobooks, written word, that the major focal point for you, the place you focus your eyes and your mind, to be how is it that they illustrate what they are saying rather than the actual definitions which they are throwing out. Because words don't really have any meaning to us until it is extrapolated and brought into our awareness and our understanding. So if we could easily move away from taking the bombastic words and focusing on how it is it that is being applied to a situation which is in front of us, I think much more could be done with the time you spend paying attention and focusing on the message which the presenter is sharing with you. So let me finally wrap up what I think conventional wisdom is, because as you can see, there are many roadblocks towards having an understanding, and there are many presuppositions or assumptions made of an understanding of something which someone is speaking about. So it would make this video a lot longer than possible, so I would just like to arrive at a conclusion directly. Conventional wisdom. First, imagine yourself as an absolute person, only black and white, hot or cold. To move from the state of an absolutist to a person who has an understanding of conventions would mean that you understand that facts can change depending on the environment which you are practicing them in. If you go on a walk in the rain, it would be a different experience to you going for a walk in the sun. That is convention. Now, convention, once you have an experience of convention, have decided what is it that you are focusing on and could successfully categorize experiences in which a certain action is good for a certain time, now you gain wisdom. Because you have separated the wheat from the chaff per se, and have learned to place yourself in a situation and to get the highest yield out of it systematically so that you could document it. This is wisdom. So what the people in the 1900s were referring to when they coined this word conventional wisdom is that they are referring to a craftsman, a practitioner, who has gained wisdom about how to use his craft and when it is most appropriate to apply. It's like going for a seminar and learning what is the top 5 funky ways to start a new business. That is wisdom per se, okay? However, what often is missing is that Theirs is from their perspective, and until it is applied to your situation and it's successful in the same way, not much value can be gained from that. Okay, that's why we need to practice. We need to practice. And it's a very strange thing. Even though I think very much less in terms of absolutes now, and I think more in conventions, I do feel the underlying current that there are still many things in my mind which are created and portrayed in the absolute term. So it is also my journey as someone sharing this information with you to explain to you that this is actually quite normal, especially for people in the first world country, because most of the information that is shared with us is all absolutes. There is value there, okay? When you receive absolute information, there's a certain surety in it, and so we could live into it and practice it sooner. Conventional wisdom is more for somebody who has already started to practice, because it gives them variance in terms of performance. However, if we are being introduced to topics and we are starting to learn something, an absolute piece of information is more useful for us at the beginning to understand and create the framework needed to perform something. So, in summary, be very careful in terms of how you define things. Take the definition or the information based on whether you can connect with it, and understand that there are structural progressions in terms of words used, and if you are able to find them, it will be highly beneficial for you, because you can see how sense becomes common sense become conventions, and conventions become conventional wisdom. I thank you for your time in listening. I hope to share with you much more in the future. If you like, please share this video with others, subscribe to me, and I'll bring you more content in the future. Take care, guys. Have a good day.